The sleek silver ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its hull gleaming in the morning sunlight. Inside, Ambassador Zixtail of the Valari adjusted his breathing apparatus and glanced at his fellow diplomats. After years of secret observation, the Galactic Confederation was finally making official contact with humans. "Remember," Zixtal said, his voice a soft whistle through translators, "humans are unpredictable. They built nuclear weapons before they visited their own moon. We must proceed with caution." Krell, the reptilian Dorn representative, linked his vertical eyelids. "Their violent tendencies are well documented. My analysis suggests a 93% chance they will become problematic allies." Nisa, the empathic Laraxi, waved her delicate blue fingers. "I sense fear in this room, not from humans. They are younger than our civilizations, but that does not make them lesser." The ship landed on the roof of the newly established Earth Embassy in New York. It had been built in just 3 months after initial communication began. Humans worked quickly when motivated, another trait the Confederation found concerning. Outside the ship, Frank Miller straightened his tie and took a deep breath. As Earth's first ambassador to alien life, the weight of history pressed on his shoulders. Beside him stood Susan Wright, his chief assistant, and Lieutenant Greg Patterson, the military attaché assigned to the diplomatic team. "Remember," Frank said quietly, "they've been watching us for decades. They know more about us than we do about them. Stay alert." Greg nodded, his eyes scanning the ship as its doors slid open. The lieutenant had served in 3 combat zones before this assignment. He'd seen the worst humans could do to each other. Now he wondered what these aliens might do to all of humanity if things went wrong. 6 aliens emerged from the ship. They varied in size and shape. Some had too many limbs, others too few. Some moved like water, others like machines. But all shared one feature. Compared to the humans, they looked fragile. Even Krell, the most physically imposing at 7 feet tall, had a slender build that made him appear almost delicate. Frank stepped forward with a practiced smile. "On behalf of the people of Earth, I welcome the representatives of the Galactic Confederation to our world." Zixtal moved forward. The Valari stood just 5 feet tall, with gray skin that seemed almost translucent. His large eyes blinked slowly as he raised 4-fingered hands in greeting. "Ambassador Miller, we bring greetings from the 12 species of the Galactic Confederation. After much deliberation, we have decided Earth is ready to join the interstellar community." The formal welcome continued as they moved inside the embassy. Humans and aliens sat across from each other at a long table, with translators working to bridge the language gap. The aliens spoke of peace, cooperation, and cultural exchange. They mentioned trade possibilities and technological sharing. Greg Patterson watched from his position near the wall. As a security officer, he was trained to read body language. The aliens were harder to interpret, but something felt off. When they spoke of humans joining the Confederation, their tone shifted slightly. Not equals, he realized. They see us as junior partners at best. During a break in the talks, Greg approached Susan as she reviewed her notes. "Something isn't right," he said quietly. "They're talking down to us." Susan glanced at the aliens, who were examining a scale model of the solar system. "Of course they are. Their civilizations are thousands of years ahead of ours. We're the new kids. It's more than that. Watch how the reptile one Krell keeps looking at our security personnel. He's assessing threats." "We're doing the same to them," Susan pointed out. "Yes, but his expression changed when Ambassador Miller mentioned our military capabilities. He looked ... amused. Before Susan could respond, Frank called everyone back to the table. The afternoon session focused on the Confederation's structured 12-member species, hundreds of inhabited worlds, governed by a council with representatives from each species. Earth would start as an observing member with limited voting. Right. As Zixtel explained this arrangement, Greg noticed the subtle condescension in his translated words. This is standard procedure for newly spacefaring races. As you prove your stability and commitment to peace, your status will improve. When the formal meetings ended, Frank invited the aliens to a welcome dinner prepared by famous chefs. The dining room featured foods from around the world, carefully selected based on what their research suggested the various aliens could eat. Greg stood near the wall, watching as Nisa, the empathic Laraxi, approached him. Her skin shimmered with blue and purple patterns that seemed to shift with her emotions. "You distrust us, Lieutenant Patterson," she said. It wasn't a question. Greg kept his expression neutral. "I'm security. Distrust is in my job description." Nisa's head tilted. "Your species is fascinating. So young, yet you've survived challenges that destroyed other worlds. The Confederation has been watching Earth for longer than you might think." "Why contact us now?" Greg asked. "Resources, potential, location." Nisa's patterns darkened slightly. "Earth sits at a valuable intersection of space lanes, and humans have proven remarkably adaptable." Across the room, Zixtal was speaking with Frank. "We hope to begin cultural exchanges soon. Understanding between our peoples is crucial." "We're eager to learn," Frank replied. "Perhaps a delegation from the Confederation would like to tour some of our cities? Experience human culture firsthand." Zixtal's large eyes blinked slowly. "An excellent suggestion. I will personally lead such a delegation." Later that night, after the aliens had returned to their ship, Frank called his team together. "Initial impressions?" Susan checked her tablet. "They're offering technological assistance in medicine and clean energy, but nothing in defense or computing." "Interesting choices." Greg leaned forward. "They're hiding something. The way they talk about us, it's like we're children." "Or pets." Frank nodded slowly. "I caught that too. They need something from us, but they're not being direct about what it is." "What's our next move?" Susan asked. "We give them what they asked for," Frank said. "A cultural tour. Let them see humanity up close. But we keep watching, keep listening." He turned to Greg. "Lieutenant, I want you to escort their cultural delegation. Keep your eyes open." Greg nodded. The aliens wanted to understand humans, but he intended to understand them first, and whatever hidden agenda they brought from the stars. That night, in the Confederation ship, Zixtal filed his report to the Council. Humans appear cooperative but cautious. Their military representative shows signs of suspicion. Recommend proceeding with Phase 2 cultural assessment before revealing our true interest in Earth's position and resources. These humans are physically stronger than most Confederation species, but their divisive nature and emotional decision-making will make them manageable allies. 2 months passed since the arrival of the Galactic Confederation delegation. The initial excitement had faded into routine meetings and careful negotiations. Now it was time for the next phase. The cultural exchange program. Olivia Carter waited in the embassy lobby, reviewing her notes one last time. As a cultural anthropologist, she had studied how different human societies interacted. Now she would guide aliens through the complex world of human behavior. The responsibility made her both nervous and excited. The elevator doors opened, and Lieutenant Greg Patterson stepped out with 3 aliens, Ambassador Zixtal, Krell, and Nisa. Greg nodded at Olivia. In the past 2 months, they had worked together preparing for this cultural tour. She had come to respect his attention to detail, even if his suspicion of the aliens sometimes seemed excessive. "Dr. Carter," Zixtal said through his translator, "we look forward to observing authentic human activities." Olivia smiled. "I've arranged visits to museums, concert halls, and government buildings to start. Krell made a sound like stones sliding together. His species' version of clearing his throat. With respect, we have studied your formal institutions from orbit for decades. We wish to see ordinary humans in their natural settings. Nisa's skin rippled with colors. How humans behave when not performing official duties. This is what will help us understand your species. Olivia exchanged glances with Greg. This wasn't the plan they had prepared. I'll need to clear any changes with Ambassador Miller, Greg said. An hour later, they sat in Miller's office as he reviewed the aliens' request. They want to see shopping malls, public parks, and community events, Olivia explained. Places where regular people gather. Miller frowned. Security concerns? Greg leaned forward. Increased, but manageable. I'd need additional plainclothes personnel. And the diplomatic risks? Miller asked. Olivia considered this. Humans can be unpredictable in casual settings, but showing only our formal side creates a false impression. If they want to understand us, they should see us as we really are. Miller nodded slowly. Approved, but Lieutenant Patterson stays with them at all times, and Dr. Carter tried to keep them away from our more chaotic gatherings. The next morning, their first stop was Central Park. Families played on green lawns, joggers ran along paths, and street performers entertained small crowds. The aliens watched with great interest. They group by family units, yet freely interact with strangers, Zixtal observed, recording everything on a small device. Fascinating contradiction. Krell pointed to a heated argument between two chess players. Conflict appears common, yet rarely escalates to violence. Nisa seemed overwhelmed by the emotional display around her. As an empath, she could sense feelings. So much emotion in one place. How do you not exhaust yourselves? Olivia smiled. Emotions are natural to us. We don't think about it much. There. Next stop was a busy shopping mall. The aliens were fascinated by how humans spent their currency and the social aspects of shopping. Zixtal was particularly interested in how people negotiated space in crowded areas. Your species maintains invisible boundaries, he noted. You avoid touching strangers without discussion, yet pack tightly together in these spaces. During lunch, at the food court, a child approached their table, staring openly at the aliens. His mother rushed over, apologizing. I'm so sorry. Billy is just curious, she said, trying to pull him away. To everyone's surprise, Nisa extended her hand to the child. Curiosity is good. It is how we learn about each other. The boy touched her shimmering blue skin gently, then grinned. You're pretty. For the first time since their arrival, the aliens seemed genuinely pleased by a human interaction. That afternoon, they visited a community center where a local election debate was happening. The passionate arguments between candidates left the aliens confused. Your leaders openly disagree? Krell asked. In the Dorn Republic, such public conflict would indicate governmental collapse. Greg, who had been quietly watching the aliens all day, decided to join the conversation. Democracy is messy. We argue, vote, and move forward together. Zixtal studied Greg with his large eyes. Yet your military follows strict hierarchical command. No arguing there. Different systems for different purposes, Greg replied. Flexibility is a human strength. By the end of the first week, they had visited schools, sports events, religious gatherings, and even a farmer's market. Each night, the aliens returned to their ship to report their observations to the Confederation Council. On the ship, Zixtal reviewed the day's recordings with his colleagues. Their behavior patterns are disturbing, he said. They shift emotional states rapidly. One moment cooperative, the next competitive. Krell analyzed the data. Their physical capabilities continue to concern me. Even their young show strength that would match adult Valari. And did you observe how quickly they move when motivated? Nisa seemed less troubled. They feel deeply. Their emotions are not just surface displays. They truly care for each other, even strangers sometimes. That makes them more unpredictable. Zixtal countered. The Council must know these humans may be more difficult to guide than we anticipated. Back at the embassy, Olivia and Greg compared notes on the aliens' reactions. They seem confused by us, Olivia said. Especially our contradictions. Greg nodded. Did you notice how they watched those construction workers yesterday? The way humans can lift heavy objects seemed to surprise them. I think they expected us to be more consistent, Olivia replied. More like them. Greg looked out the window at the alien ship glowing softly in the night. I still don't trust their intentions. They're studying us too carefully, like scientists. With lab specimens. Olivia checked her schedule for the next day. Tomorrow's activities are fairly routine. A visit to a university in the morning, lunch at a restaurant, then an art gallery. Greg scrolled through his phone, then looked up with a small smile. What about showing them a real slice of humanity? After the official schedule, let's take them somewhere ordinary people go to relax. What did you have in mind? Olivia asked. There's a place called Murphy's Pub, about 6 blocks from here. Not too rowdy, not too quiet. Just regular folks unwinding after work. If they want to see real humans, that's about as authentic as it gets. Olivia considered this. Ambassador Miller might not approve. We don't need to put it on the official schedule, Greg suggested. Just a quick stop on the way back. What? Could go wrong at a simple neighborhood pub? Olivia laughed. When humans say, what could go wrong, something usually does. Neither of them realized how prophetic those words would be, or how a simple visit to Murphy's Pub would change the course of human-alien relations forever. Friday evening arrived with a light rain falling on the city streets. The official cultural tour had ended at 5 o'clock, but as Greg had suggested, they made an unscheduled stop at Murphy's Pub. A small establishment sat on a corner between a bookstore and a laundromat, its windows glowing with warm light. This is a traditional gathering place, Olivia explained to the aliens as they approached the entrance. People come here after work to relax, socialize, and sometimes consume alcohol. Krell tilted his head. Your species deliberately ingests substances that impair cognitive function. For what purpose? Greg opened the door for them. Sometimes, thinking less is the point. Inside, Murphy's Pub had the comfortable wear of a place well loved by its patrons. Dark wood booths lined the walls. A long bar stretched across one side, and a small area in the back held a pool table and dartboard. The Friday night crowd filled about 2/3 of the space with a pleasant buzz of conversation. A few heads turned as the aliens entered, but most people quickly returned to their drinks and discussions. In the 2 months since first contact, the sight of aliens had become less shocking, though still unusual. The bartender, a burly man with a thick beard, nodded at Greg. Your usual spot is open, Lieutenant. He glanced at the aliens without changing his expression. First round on the house for our visitors from space. Greg led them to a corner booth with a good view of the entire pub. Nisa's skin rippled with rapid color changes as she absorbed the emotional atmosphere of the room. So much happening here, she whispered. Joy, frustration, contraction, relaxation all mixing together. Zixtal was recording everything as usual. Fascinating. They separate into small groups, but maintain awareness of the larger gathering. A server approached their table. What can I get you folks? After some explanation of Earth beverages, Nisa chose a fruit juice. Zixtal requested water. And Krell, after learning about the concept of alcohol, decided to try a small beer for research purposes. Greg ordered a soda since he was on duty, and Olivia chose a glass of wine. Across the pub, a group of 5 men and women celebrated around a table covered with empty glasses. A banner hung above them read, "Congratulations." "Danny!" One man stood up, raising his glass unsteadily. "To Danny Jones and his big promotion." The company finally recognized the best damn engineer in the state. Cheers erupted from the table as Danny, a man in his early 30s with a flushed face, stood and took a theatrical bow. They all seemed to be honoring one individual, Krell. Observed. "Is this a dominance ritual?" Olivia smiled. "It's a celebration. His friends are happy for his success." Meanwhile, at the bar, a man named Eric Walsh was ordering another round for himself and his friend Pete. Eric turned too quickly with his full glass and bumped into Danny, who had approached the bar for more drinks. Beer splashed across Danny's. "New shirt. Hey, watch it," Danny shouted, looking down at the spreading stain. "Sorry, man," Eric said, grabbing some napkins from the bar. "Total accident." Danny knocked the napkins away. "This is a brand new shirt." Eric's friend Pete stepped closer. He said he was sorry. "Accidents happen." Zixtal leaned forward, his large eyes fixed on the interaction. Conflict is beginning. Will security personnel intervene? Greg shook his head slightly. "Not yet. This happens sometimes." At the bar, the situation escalated as Danny's friend Charlie joined him. "Is there a problem?" "Here?" "This clumsy idiot spilled his drink all over me," Danny said, his words slightly slurred. Eric tried again. "Look, I apologized. Let me buy you a drink to make up for it." "I don't want your drink," Danny said, giving Eric a small shove. Pete stepped between them. "Don't put your hands on him." Charlie pushed Pete back. "Mind your own business." The bartender called out, "Take it easy, guys. Don't make me call the cops." For a moment, it seemed the situation might calm down. Then Danny made a comment about Eric's appearance, and Eric responded with an insult about Danny's intelligence. Charlie shoved Pete harder, and suddenly the conflict erupted into physical violence. Danny swung first, his fist connecting with Eric's jaw. Pete jumped in to defend his friend, and Charlie tackled Pete. Within seconds, the four men were engaged in a full fight, knocking over bar stools and bumping into other patrons. Some people moved away quickly, while others gathered to watch or shout encouragement. The aliens watched in horror as the violence unfolded. Nisa's skin turned pale gray. Zixtal stopped recording and started backing toward the exit. And Krell stood up, his reptilian eyes wide with alarm. "We should leave immediately," Zixtal whispered urgently. "This is dangerous." Greg was already on his feet, assessing the situation. "Stay behind me. We'll move along the wall toward the door." But before they could leave, the fight spilled outward. More people were getting involved, some trying to break it up, others joining in. A bar stool flew through the air, heading directly toward their table. Greg moved with startling speed. He caught the heavy wooden stool with one hand before it could hit Zixtal, then positioned himself between the aliens and the chaos. His military training took over as he created a protective barrier with his body. "Olivia, get them to the door," he commanded, his voice calm but firm. She nodded, leading the aliens along the wall as Greg kept himself between them and the fight. The aliens stared at Greg in astonishment, particularly at how easily he had caught the bar stool that would have caused serious injury to Zixtal's fragile form. They had almost reached the exit when one of the fighters, Danny's friend Charlie, was shoved in their direction. He stumbled toward Nisa, out of control and ready to crash into her. Without hesitation, Greg stepped in, caught Charlie by the shoulders, and firmly but carefully redirected him away from the aliens, using just enough. Forced to change his direction without hurting him. "Outside now," Greg said to Olivia and the aliens, holding the door open for them. Once outside in the rainy street, the aliens were visibly shaken. Nisa trembled, her skin flashing chaotic patterns. Krell stood rigidly, his breathing rapid. Zixtal stared at Greg with an unreadable expression. "That is how humans behave in social settings?" Zixtal finally asked. "Sudden violence without warning?" Olivia tried to explain. "Not typically. Alcohol sometimes. You moved very quickly," Zixtal interrupted, still looking at Greg. "Your reflexes and strength. Are all humans capable of such physical feats?" Greg shifted uncomfortably. "Most of us can move pretty fast when we need to." In the distance, police sirens wailed. Greg called for their transport to return to the embassy. As they waited, Krell spoke quietly to the other. Aliens in their own language. Olivia couldn't understand the words, but their tone and expressions made it clear. What they had witnessed had deeply disturbed them. What none of the humans realized was that the Confederation had severely underestimated human physical capabilities. To the aliens, the speed and strength displayed in the bar fight and in Greg's protective response was not just impressive. It was terrifying. The morning after the incident at Murphy's Pub, emergency meetings filled the Earth Embassy. Ambassador Frank Miller paced his office, reading reports about what had happened. This was exactly the kind of situation he had wanted to avoid. A bar fight, he muttered, shaking his head. Of all the human behaviors for them to witness. Susan Wright entered with a tablet. The Confederation ship requested an urgent meeting. They want to discuss serious concerns about human stability and safety protocols. Frank sighed. "Where are Lieutenant Patterson and Dr. Carter?" "Waiting outside." "I asked them to prepare a full explanation. Send them in." Greg and Olivia entered, looking tired. Neither had slept much after the events at the pub. They had spent hours writing detailed reports about what happened. "Ambassador, I take full responsibility," Greg began. "Taking them to Murphy's Pub was my suggestion." Frank held up his hand. "I've read your reports. What I need now is your assessment of the damage. How badly did this incident frighten our visitors?" Olivia spoke up. They were definitely shocked. Nisa was physically trembling. Krell kept looking. At the other humans, like they might attack at any moment. "And Zixtal?" Frank asked. "Hard to read," Greg said. "But he seemed most interested in how quickly I responded when things got dangerous." Frank nodded slowly. "The Confederation representatives will be here in 30 minutes. They're considering terminating the diplomatic mission entirely." The news hit Greg and Olivia hard. Months of careful diplomacy endangered by one night at a pub. "Sir," Greg said, "before the meeting, there's something you should see." He pulled out his phone and opened a security app. "I had a small camera on my jacket last night. Standard security protocol. It recorded everything." Frank looked surprised. "Show me." Greg started the video and forwarded to the moment when the bar stool flew toward their table. The footage clearly showed Greg catching it with one hand, then positioning himself to shield the aliens. Later, it captured him redirecting Charlie away from Nisa, using precise control to prevent harm to either party. Frank watched with growing interest. "This changes things. Susan, make sure we can show this footage during the meeting. Patterson, Carter, you'll both attend." 30 minutes later, they gathered in the main conference room. The 3 alien representatives entered with additional security personnel. The atmosphere was tense. Zixtal spoke first. "Ambassador Miller, last night's events have forced us to reconsider our assessment of human suitability for Confederation membership." Krell added, "The speed with which your species resorts to violence is deeply concerning." Frank nodded respectfully. "We understand your concerns. The behavior you witnessed does not represent humanity at our best. But before you make any decisions, I'd like to show you something." He nodded to Susan, who played Greg's security footage on the large screen. The room fell silent as they watched Greg's lightning-fast reflexes as he caught the bar. stool, and protected Zixtao. When the video ended, no one spoke for several seconds. Zixtal turned to Greg with an expression of confusion. "You are not fighting," he said slowly. "You are protecting me at risk to yourself." "Why?" Greg looked surprised by the question. "It's my job to keep everyone safe. That includes you." "But we are not your species," Krell said. "Evolutionary logic suggests you should prioritize your own kind." Olivia leaned forward. "Human cooperation extends beyond our species. We protect those in our care." Nisa's skin rippled with thoughtful colors. "You moved faster than the humans who were fighting. Your physical capabilities appear superior." Greg shrugged. "Military training. But most humans can react quickly when needed." Zixtal glanced at the other aliens, then turned back to the humans. "We must be honest with you now. The Confederation has been monitoring Earth for many decades. We classified humans as physically dangerous, but technologically inferior. Your tendency toward conflict made you unpredictable." Frank raised an eyebrow. "And now?" "Now we see the situation is more complex," Zixtal admitted. "Lieutenant Patterson's actions were unexpected." Krell spoke up. "Our species evolved different survival strategies. The Valari developed advanced technology to compensate for physical fragility. The Dorn focused on social hierarchy to prevent conflict. The Luraxi developed empathic abilities to sense danger before it occurred. Humans followed a different path," Nisa added. "You maintained physical strength while developing intelligence. Most Confederation species chose one or the other." Frank processed this information carefully. "What does this mean for Earth's relationship with the Confederation?" Zixtal hesitated before answering. "We need time to reconsider our approach. The Confederation had planned to guide Earth gradually into a role that suited our needs. We assumed humans would be easily directed." Greg exchanged glances with Olivia. His suspicions had been correct. "After seeing how quickly humans can shift from peaceful interaction to violence, and how efficiently you can protect others, we must adjust our assessment," Zixtal continued. "We request a 3-day pause in diplomatic activities while we consult with the Council." After the aliens left, Frank turned to his team. "Well, that was revealing. They've been planning to manipulate us all along." Greg nodded. "They thought we were primitive but useful. Now they're not sure what to think." "Did you notice how fixated they were on your physical abilities?" Olivia asked Greg. "I think you scared them." "All I did was catch a bar stool," Greg sighed. "With one hand," Frank pointed out, "while moving faster than anyone else in the room." To them, that must have looked superhuman. Susan, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up. "This could work in our favor. If they're reconsidering their approach because they're concerned about our physical capabilities, then we have leverage we didn't have before," Frank finished. "They respect strength, even if they don't possess it themselves." Greg thought about the aliens' reactions. It wasn't just strength that surprised them. It was how we used it. They expected the violence, but not the protection. Olivia nodded. In their minds, physical power equals aggression. They don't understand the concept of protective violence. So a bar fight might have accidentally improved our diplomatic position, Frank said with a slight smile. "If we handle the next few days carefully," Susan cautioned. Frank looked at Greg. "Lieutenant, I want you present at all future meetings with the delegation. Your actions impressed them more than any words could have." That evening, Greg and Olivia walked through the quiet embassy gardens, discussing the day's revelations. "They've been watching us for decades," Olivia said, "studying us like specimens." Greg nodded, planning how best to use us for their purposes. "And now? Now they're afraid of us," Greg said. "Or at least they respect what we're capable of." Olivia stopped walking and turned to face him. "What do you think will happen next?" I'm not sure, Greg admitted, but I know one thing they'll never look at humans the same way again. On the Confederation ship, the aliens were having a similar conversation as they prepared their report to the Council. Everything had changed. The species they had classified as useful primitives had suddenly become something much more complex and potentially dangerous. The question now was how to proceed with a species that could be both unexpectedly violent and surprisingly protective, often in the same moment. 3 days passed with no contact from the Confederation ship. The Earth Embassy staff continued their work, but tension filled the air. Their future relationship with the galactic community hung in the balance, all because of one night at Murphy's pub. On the morning of the 4th day, Ambassador Frank Miller received a message. The Confederation delegation was ready to meet again. This time, they requested a smaller gathering. Just Frank, Greg, and Olivia from the human side, and Zixtal, Krell, and Nisa representing the aliens. They gathered in a smaller conference room with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle rather than across a formal table. Frank noticed the change in setup immediately. This wasn't going to be a standard diplomatic meeting. Zixtal spoke first. Thank you for your patience. We have spent the past 3 days in deep communication with the Confederation Council. Our assessment of humanity has evolved. Krell nodded, his reptilian features more relaxed than before. The Council has reviewed all our observations, particularly the events at the drinking establishment. Murphy's Pub, Olivia provided. Yes, Murphy's Pub, Krell continued. The Council found the footage most illuminating. Frank leaned forward. Slightly. And what conclusions has the Council reached? Nisa's skin rippled with calm blue patterns. We would like to speak more openly than we have before. No more diplomatic filters. Frank nodded. We appreciate honesty. Zixtal took a deep breath through his breathing apparatus. When the Confederation first detected your civilization, we categorized Earth as a developing world with useful resources, but primitive technology. As you advanced, we observed your conflicts with concern. Your world wars suggested a species unable to move beyond violence. Yet you developed nuclear weapons, then chose not to use them on each other, Krell added. This contradiction fascinated us. The Confederation planned to gradually integrate Earth as a resource provider, Zixtal admitted. Your physical strength would make you useful for labor and security tasks that most Confederation species find difficult. We would provide technological advancement in exchange. Greg's jaw tightened. You saw us as workers, not equals. Yes, Zixtal said simply. That was our plan. Frank kept his expression neutral, despite his anger. And now? Nisa spoke softly. Now we understand that we severely underestimated your species' complexity. What we witnessed at Murphy's Pub changed everything. A bar fight changed your entire assessment of humanity? Olivia asked skeptically. Not the fight itself, Zixtal clarified, but Lieutenant Patterson's response to it. In our species, physical power is used primarily for dominance or aggression. The concept of using strength to protect others, especially those not of your kind, is less developed among Confederation species. Krell leaned forward. May I ask you a direct question, Lieutenant? Greg nodded. When you caught that wooden object that would have struck Ambassador Zixtal, did you calculate the potential diplomatic damage if he were injured? Greg looked confused. No, I just reacted. Someone was in danger. I moved. Without conscious thought? Krell pressed. It was instinct, Greg said. Protect the vulnerable. The 3 aliens exchanged meaningful glances. This instinct, Zixtal said slowly, is common among humans? Frank nodded. Most humans will move to protect others in danger, especially those who are smaller or weaker. Children, the elderly, or, he gestured to the aliens, visitors. Under our protection. Your society celebrates this behavior, Nisa observed. Your entertainment, your histories, your heroes. They often gain status through protection, not just domination. We've been watching Earth for decades, Zixtel sighed, yet we missed this fundamental aspect of your nature. We saw your capacity for violence and assumed it was your defining trait. Olivia smiled slightly. Humans are complicated. Yes, Zixtel agreed, more complicated than we understood. Frank straightened in his chair. So what does this mean for Earth's relationship with the Confederation? Zixtel's large eyes blinked slowly. The Council has authorized me to offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Confederation, not as junior partners or resource providers, but as equals. The humans exchanged surprised glances. That's quite a change from your original plan. Frank said cautiously. Krell made a sound that might have been a sigh. We must be honest about our situation. The Confederation faces threats from beyond our explored space. Aggressive species that do not respond to diplomacy. Most Confederation members evolved away from physical confrontation long ago. We developed technology instead of strength. You need soldiers, Greg said, understanding dawning. We need protectors. Nisa corrected gently. Species who can both build and fight, who understand both creation and destruction. Like Lieutenant Patterson catching that barstool, Zixtel added. Power with precision, strength with restraint, violence in service of protection. Frank considered this carefully. So you're offering us full membership because you need our physical capabilities. We offer partnership because we need what humanity represents, Zixtel said. The balance you maintain between advancement and strength, between diplomacy and action, between thinking and doing. Frank looked at Greg and Olivia, then back to the aliens. If we accept this partnership, it must be as true equals, no hidden agendas. Agreed, Zixtel said. Full technological exchange, equal representation on the council, mutual defense. Greg still looked skeptical. All because of what you saw at a bar? Nisa's skin shifted to warm golden tones. Sometimes a single moment reveals more truth than years of study. 2 weeks later, Frank stood before the United Nations, announcing Earth's invitation to join the Galactic Confederation as full members. News channels worldwide broadcast images of the alien ships in orbit. Humanity celebrated its new place among the stars. At the Earth Embassy, Greg and Olivia watched the announcement on a screen in the garden. It's hard to believe, Olivia said. All our careful planning, all our diplomatic preparation, and what changed their minds was a random bar fight. Greg smiled slightly. Not the fight itself, what came after. Still, it's ironic. They feared our capacity for violence and respected us for the same physical abilities when used differently. Humans are walking contradictions, Greg said. Maybe that's what makes us valuable to them. Olivia looked up at the evening sky, where the first stars were becoming visible. Do you think we're ready for this? To join a galactic community? Ready or not, we're part of it now, Greg replied. At least they know what they're getting. On the Confederation ship, Zixtel made his final report to the Council. Humans remain unpredictable and physically imposing. Their emotional nature makes them volatile. Their protective instincts make them valuable. They are dangerous, yes, but they are dangerous in exactly the way the Confederation needs right now. I recommend proceeding with full integration. The species that can start a bar fight one moment and risk themselves to protect strangers the next might be precisely the allies we need for the challenges ahead. As the ship prepared to return to Confederation space with the signed treaty, Zixtel looked down at the blue planet below. Humans were indeed complicated. Their strength could create or destroy. Their emotions could lead to conflict or compassion. They were walking contradictions, but perhaps, Zixtel thought, Those contradictions were exactly what made them uniquely suited to face an unpredictable universe.